Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Dale. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. In tonight's transmission, I'm going to be demonstrating asymmetrical frequency and ecological warfare that is predicated upon eradicating humanity. Now, it seems like to the point where the plutocracy and the oligarchs, it seems like they have a mandated cap that they have to complete before the agenda for 2030, before you have the return of the Anunnaki, before you have the return of the Elohim, before you have the return of Thoth, who was also associated with the messenger that is connected to the conjunction of Gemini and Uranus, right? This is all based on a personification of karmic retribution. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important video. Please get it out there. Please get it out. So we're going to start the transmission like we always do. We finna get the edification out. Put the 777 in the chat. Put the 777s up, which is the God frequency, because the God frequency is the only way to eradicate the Metatronic overlay of what we call the three-dimensional matrix system that is based on a dualistic paradox, right? We finna get into it today. Y'all finna get this work. Now, the embodiment and the philosophy of the return of Thoth is the return of the love frequency by speaking truth, because only words from the heart can reach the heart, because the heart is associated with, you know, Tahuti, who is Thoth, who is also the messenger, right? So that means that you have to be tapped into your inner child in order to reap the benefits, to extrapolate the truth, right? By way of a certain message on the planet that is going to harmonize with a cosmic convergence. Now, it tells you right here, we just went through the 777 portal, right? And the 77 portal is basically the personification of the God frequency, like I was saying. So Uranus will be in Gemini July the 7th until May of 2033, right? And that's during the time when the vortex opens up. When you get into the Montauk Project, when you get into the Philadelphia experiment, it talks about how it was a big rip in the universe, and it basically caused the interface transition to the point where a vortex opens up in increments from 1943, 53, 63. I'm going to show you the diagram here in a second. So Uranus is going to be in Gemini from 2025 to 2033, right? And you got to understand that 33 is also a Masonic number, which is also a form of completion in itself. Now, when you get into Saturn will be in retrograde from July the 13th to November 28th. Now, that's the precursor to the winter. Now, this is all based on the matriarchal energies returning to the planet, because 6 days or 7 days all the way up until July the 13th. Like I said, that's 13. So that's July the 13th, which is a matriarchal number, right? A matriarchal number that denotes the fact that we're going through a reset process. So Saturn going into retrograde is a form of karmic retribution. The karmic energies to eradicate everything that was built on imperialism and colonization, right? They kept a certain demographic of people on the planet economically disenfranchised, right? To the point they didn't have the ability to have resources to revitalize their situations. Now, like I said, Saturn is the personification of karma, right? They keep you stuck in a artificial time analysis mechanism, which is a fixed position reality. They want to keep you stuck in a fixed position reality because it's based on a trauma recursive system, right? Because the trauma in itself creates a force field around the brain that keeps you boxed in. They want to keep you boxed in as much as possible because Saturn is also associated with the microscopic waves of energy that is sucking up the neurons in the body and uploading all these things into a neuromorphic cyber cloud for the AI god who is also associated with Galactus in the Marvel comics. We finna get into that as we get through the transmission. Now, everything that you're seeing is basically the embodiment of a tower moment, right? So you just had Gemini and Uranus basically harmonizing together. So Gemini is also the dualistic energies of Jack and Boaz, right? Which creates a tower moment. Now, Donald Trump is also a Gemini, right? But Gemini is also associated with the messenger. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is the messenger. We all know that the 144,000, the frequency of truth, we are the messengers, because we are the messengers of the gods that's coming back to the planet to revitalize the matriarchal energies, right? So the tower moment in itself is also associated with Donald Trump because he's going to be the perpetuator and he's going to be the engineer and the architect of the next 9/11 event, right? As you can see, by way of frequency and weather modification, they're trying to hit us, blindside us, right? And I'm going to, give you that, philosophy here in a second when I'm showing you a video demonstration of it. But Donald Trump is also the personification of the Gemini energy. Gemini is associated with the messenger, who was associated with Tahuti, who was actually Thoth, who was also the spirit of Melchizedek. Now, like I said, the karma in itself, the messenger, right? Karmic retribution, the return of Thoth is the return of truth. And the return of truth is going to eradicate the Metatronic overlay that's connected to Saturn, right? This is why Saturn's rings are basically disappearing, right? You got to read the book by Norman Burgum called The Ringmakers of Saturn, right? Now, the tower moment is based on the embodiment of judgment. What you're looking at right here, I've been telling y'all about this ancient Alpha symbol, right? You see all the stuff, the floods and everything that's going on in Texas. Then you got the valley right here where you have the New Madrid fault line. And then you got the Cascadian Seduction Zone. And then you got, the Seamount Axle where you got that underground volcano right on the demarcation in between Northern California and Oregon, right? All these energies that was cultivated by the Black Sun in 2017, 2023, 2024, that created a judgment symbol. And the judgment in itself is a tower moment during the administration of Donald Trump, right? It's going to happen during his watch. That's why you got to be very meticulous about everything that's taking place on the planet right now. You got to watch the movies. You got to pay attention to what's going on in social media. You got to pay attention to the news. You got to pay attention to what's going on in sports because it's all connected. Everything is a codex, right? It's almost to the point where it seems like they just putting out codexes and they trying to see who's starting to understand the codexes and starting to see the symbolism and the messages in the codex. It's almost to the point like that to where they can start picking people out. And like I said, I'm a truth speaker and I'm going to extrapolate the truth, the best way that I can to the people. And whenever time that they put it inside of a movie, I'm going to perpetuate it in my demonstrations, right? Because I don't hold on to knowledge, because knowledge, information applied is knowledge, and the application of knowledge is wisdom, and the precursor to that is enlightenment. And what are the three elements of enlightenment? Instinction, right? Intuition, reasoning, that's connected to the four basic elements of the soul, which is thinking, reasoning, understanding, and willpower. The willpower in itself that is extracted from the heart chakra, that coincides with neurocardiology. This is why the heart is 100,000 times more highly magnetic than the brain, right? That is the reason why, because it has a lot of metaphysical and healing modalities that is connected to your neurological functions. So like I said, the judgment process is going to happen by way of truth, right? Because truth is a thought, and thought is associated with Thoth, who is the messenger, the spirit of Melchizedek that lives within the heart chakra, right? That's when you unlock the 144 Akenic keys to where you get the ninth dimensional knowledge, which is the vector codes, right? That's a whole different transmission. So the tower moment is the embodiment of judgment. This ancient Alpha symbol, what you see is a Hebrew symbol, right? This is a sign of judgment. They just came out with a Marvel movie, and the Silver Sulfur that is basically associated with Mercury and Tahuti and Thoth. He was the messenger of Galactus. She was, right? She was the messenger of Galactus, and she came back to the planet with a certain edification, telling us that we don't have much time left, right? because it's all based on judgment. So this judgment symbol that you're seeing over is also associated with the zones, the 11 circuit zones that they put in all over the geographical landmass of America, right? So it's not a conspiracy because you can see it on the United States courts, on the court website links, the geographic boundaries of the United States Courts of Appeals, the United States District Courts, right? Now, like I said, this is all associated with the 2025 CIA document talking about the flood map, right? You can see parts of Texas being flooded, right? The perception of art imitates reality. They're going to show you the truth every time. But like I said, you got to be very meticulous. You got to think. You got to think about everything on how they're trying to perpetuate and engineer this whole philosophy, right? Why are you sectioning everything off while at the same time that we have, all these floods and everything that's taking place in Texas, right? Not a coincidence. So these maps all go hand in hand. Now, it tells you right here, climate change will likely lead to more extreme weather events like Texas, right? Then they just came out, a new megaquake fears as disaster could see 300,000 people unalive by a giant tremor and tsunami. Now, I'm going to show you a video here for a second, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to blindside us. They trying to tell you that, oh, we can no longer predict the weather, right? You got all this technology out here, right? You got all this technology, that's coming from the future that has, biometrics and can read people's facial features. And you mean to tell me that you don't have the technology to basically, extrapolate the weather and what's going to be taking place in the future when it comes to the weather? So that's what they're basically saying. They can no longer predict the weather. And I'm going to prove it to you when I show you this video. If you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, ladies and gentlemen. All right. First, I'm going to show you a video about the floods first. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Show you guys this video.
Their forecast called for the amount of rain and flooding that we're seeing. The Guadalupe River rising about 26 feet in less than an hour. According to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, state emergency operations had briefings on Thursday. So before any of this happened about potential severe weather in the area, they say the National Weather Service only called for about 3 to 6 inches of rain, but that was enough where state officials say they had some emergency response teams on standby.
I need y'all to understand something. Remember, I was telling you guys about the National Memorandum 200 that was created by Henry Kissinger, who was the Secretary of State in 1975. It's based on an unaliving program. And the reason, and that's important to understand, is because, a great majority of these so-called weather events is happening by way of frequency modification with cloud seeding technology. They're using cloud seeding technology. And the only way to delineate of, cloud seeding technology that basically creates an amalgamation of rain is that the rain looks like blue Kool-Aid, right? That's how you know. Anytime that you see rain that looks like blue Kool-Aid, that is cloud seeding technology that is coming from DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. That's what DARPA is. That technology in itself from cloud seeding technology comes from the factions of DARPA that works in harmony with the Majestic 12, who was also known as M12. So I'm going to keep playing the video because, like I said, that faction is ruled on the dark side of the moon because the moon is what pulls on the tides of the ocean, right? The Majestic 12, by way of DARPA, is what controls everything as far as like weather modification, frequency modification, and direct energy weapons and things of that nature.
and they were immediately activated once the flooding took place, specifically swift water rescue teams. They arrived at noon yesterday. We're just learning about that now during the press conference. And to explain how quickly the flooding happened, officials say one of the first responder vehicles was washed away as the flooding hit. State officials saying even first responders were caught off guard.
We'll stop at nothing to ensure that every asset and person and plane and whatever is needed is going to be involved in the process of rescuing every last person and ensure everybody involved in this is going to be fully accounted for.
But I'd also ask, please pray for our community. This is a hard day, and there will be hard days to come. Pray for us. We covet your prayers.
Ever struggled to get a credit card when you
rising 7 to 20?
Here's the thing, though. It's all going to be engineered, and I'm going to prove it with the next video. I'm going to prove to you that they're engineering everything as far as, climate change and things of that nature. They know that everything on the planet is starting to terraform by way of the frequencies of the coronal mass ejections. It's basically causing an unraveling process. Yes, that's happening from a natural standpoint. But they're also engineering certain things because, like I said, it's almost to the point where they have to complete certain missions in increments in order to have this dystopia for the agenda for 2030. It's almost like they have to complete these missions, in a form of sacrifice.
9 feet in just 4 hours, reaching the second highest level on record.
This happened very quickly over a very short amount of time that could not be predicted.
Campers forced to evacuate from sites along the rising riverbank, including at the all-girls summer camp, Camp Mystic.
This used to be a campground. These are all campsites. You can see the pipes for the RV sewage. It was all full too. All those RVs are downriver, stuck on trees like that one.
Look, the images there, obviously.
I also remember I was telling you guys about the squaring of the circle when you're talking about the 4 gas giants. Remember, you had Jupiter, Texas, all these names that was connected to places like Florida. I think it was Saturn, Florida, and Jupiter, Texas. And it created a tetrahedron, which is a tachyon energy, to pull in a flow of energy by way of direct energy weapons that is extracted from the satellites that is also associated with DARPA, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, the 4 gas giants and frequency modification go hand in hand. It's almost like they're trying to siphon the energy that's coming from the magnetosphere, and they're using it in a form of degradation.
Telling of just this flooding that came at night, caught many people off guard, according to the officials there. Many saying this was something they really weren't prepared for. You mentioned there in the open that there are a number of camps that are taking place right now, a number of children's camps, and this is obviously a holiday weekend, so there was definitely a lot of people that are being notified right now about their loved ones. They mentioned in that press briefing a little earlier that every single asset available is out right now, assisting with these water rescues and searches for people.
The Guadalupe River to nearly 8 meters higher than normal. The catastrophic flash flood struck at 4 in the morning. Still in their beds, residents were caught off guard.
We didn't know this flood was coming. Rest assured, no one knew this kind of flood was coming.
See, they said that they didn't even know it was coming, right? The reason they don't know it's coming because, like I said, they're trying to blindside us. They're not going to be telling us about all these weather events, right? It's almost like you in a club and you know your ops is in there, and then all of a sudden you get sucker punched. You know what I'm saying? They trying to blindside you. That's why I said you got to keep your guard up. You got to be Floyd with the shirt world. Like I said, you got to be prepared for what is to come, because these deep state entities, they're going to do everything that they can to extrapolate this cybernetic dystopia that is based on the agenda for 2030. And that's based on an amalgamation of unalivings that they have that's connected to their Luciferian program.
We have floods all the time. This is the most dangerous river valley in the United States. And we deal with floods on a regular basis. When it rains, we get water. We had no reason to believe that this was going to be anything like what's happened here. None whatsoever.
Rescue teams with boats, rescue divers, and helicopters scrambled to save people trapped by high water. The National Weather Service declared the flooding life-threatening and advised residents to move to higher ground. Flash floods, which occur when the ground is unable to absorb torrential rainfall, are not unusual in the Texas Hill Country. But this was unprecedented. Several communities were overwhelmed.
This is not like a hurricane where you're planning weeks in advance. You know, it hit hard, and things like this happen in a very strategic, very isolated area. And when those two things converged, you had what happened today. So this happened within less than a 2-hour span, very, very quickly.
This video, taken Friday morning, showing the nearby Guadalupe River overflowing and moving very fast. Over 500 people are out searching for missing people in Kerr County, Texas. Among the missing, a group of young campers.
I want all of you to know we will do everything humanly possible 24/7, looking at every tree, turning over every rock, whatever it takes.
In San Angelo, Texas, heavy flooding partially submerged vehicles, houses, and the road. One person in that town clung to a utility pole while awaiting rescue. As rescue efforts are still underway across Texas, officials say they expect more fatalities to be reported.
Yeah, Robbie, we've moved over to get a view of the other RV park, and I just want to show it to you guys because on July 3rd and the morning of July 4th, this empty field behind me was full of more than 50 RVs and families and people inside of them. And then that's when that wall of water, more than 25 feet, came through here and wiped it all away. And that's where it's been washing up against trees like this one. You can see the metal from these RV frames, from these mobile home frames. They are strewn about this entire river and creekway, and they are just everywhere. It's a completely destructive scene, and it's honestly hard to look at, especially when you think about the fact that that field behind me was full of more than 50 RVs and campers. Now, this water, this flooding right here, that is not the Guadalupe River. That is all the way on the other side of it. So floodwaters are still receding, and you know, the National Weather Service data showed us that the Guadalupe River rose more than 20 feet in just under an hour and a half on the morning of July 4th.
Residents have been warned to brace for more flooding as more showers and thunderstorms are forecast for the area.
I'm saying we in that Great Awakening period, so expect a lot more of this to happen, right? We are in the Aquarian age, right? Which when you look at the symbol and the sigil of the Aquarian symbol, it shows the man pouring a pitcher of water over planet Earth, right? Because now that is basically the personification that the planet is going to be flooded with truth. And it's going to be flooded with truth, which is why the Luciferian government is going to perpetuate all these forms of weather modification to keep you asleep, to keep you in a state of fear, because fear is another way to keep you stuck inside of the draconian reptilian net of what we call the net of Indria, right? And I'm gonna talk about that on my next transmission.
This is an AI plugin that... Good, John, to have you with us. Let's start with the most urgent question, namely, what's the latest on the missing girls from Camp Mystic?
Well, they're still missing, and probably the most frightening statistic about that is the most...
Everybody thought I was capping. Like I said, they don't even got DC right there no more. You can see it on the map. They don't even have the DC because, like I said, and then look, they got USA over here, kind of over here by Denver. Not a coincidence, right? If anything, why would you put it like right there? I know it's, you know, from a logical standpoint, you could say they're trying to center it in the middle, but this is right where, you know, Denver, Colorado is, I believe, right? That's going to be the new capital and the new headquarters because that's one of the geographical landmasses in the United States of America that has a higher ground and higher land, right? To where it's not going to experience, you know, a lot of floods. So you notice the DC is gone because, like I said, DC was built on a de facto corporation that was controlled by the 3 city states of, I think it's London, Washington, D.C., and the Vatican, right? And all those 3 things are basically eradicated now because the 6,000 years is up, like we've been preaching about.
Frightening statistic about that is that that Camp Mystic, which has become so suddenly famous now, had 700 children in it. So there were 700 girls in the camp. It looks as though about 20 of them, or 20 to 24, have reported to be missing, and those are the ones that are the most concerned. There are other camps in the area, but none of that were not nearly as affected by the flooding as that particular camp.
And how are the families, the friends there at the camp? How are they coping as they wait for the news?
Well, one of the things that that has been set up in the area, and so far I only know of 2 locations, but there has been a Walmart and also a nearby elementary school designated as what they're calling a reunification center, and it's being broadcast that if you know somebody that you can't find that is missing.
Notice that you see at the bottom 4 months of rainfall came down in only 4 hours. Cloud seeding technology. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up, right? This is not natural, right? Because like I said, you have 2 different timelines going on. You have a natural timeline, then you have an engineered reset that's going to be taking place. You have a natural reset and an engineered reset. A natural reset is happening by way of the activation of Mother Nature. And then you have an engineered reset that's happening by way of the activation of the deep state shadow government, as far as their technological advances to basically manipulate the ecologies of the planet.
You are directed to those locations because that's where everyone is gathering to try to meet up with relatives, and that's those are the first 2 locations that the authorities have set up to try to unify people that are missing friends or relatives.
Now, in terms of trying to find those missing persons, the girls, so do we know anything about what triggered the flash flood so suddenly overnight?
Not to this extent. You know, I was listening to your report over the phone before I came on, and it is true. There is a propensity for these kinds of floods in this.
So with that being said, now, like I said, they showed you a record amount of flooding that took place. Hold on for a second. All right. Now, 4 months of rain happened in 4 hours, right? Weather modification, frequency modification, cloud seeding technology that comes from DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, right? Came from N12. Now, remember, just a few months ago, we had a record amount of rainfall right here where the New Madrid fault line is at. Not a coincidence. Then you got 4 hours of, in 4 hours, you got 4 months worth of rainfall, right? Not a coincidence. Cloud seeding technology, right? Then you got all this going on because we can't forget about this right here because this is where the root chakra of planet Earth is at, right? All in this area right here. All these is connected to big fault lines, right? Which is why they're sectioning everything off in geographic boundaries that coincides with the United States flood map, right? And then you just had this today. It says, breaking, water rescues are now underway in Chicago. Lightning has struck John Hancock Center, as well as over 5 inches of rain has fallen in the past 90 minutes. A flash flood emergency is underway. Residents are being warned to move to higher ground. People are moving to rooftops as a flood emergency is being declared, right? This is in Chicago, right? Not a coincidence. But one thing you got to understand about Chicago, it's in alignment with the Big Dipper star constellation. Now, I'm going to show you one more video. Got another video that coincides with the floodings and everything. Oh, I got to send it to myself. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, ladies and gentlemen, because like I said, we are here to extrapolate the truth. We are here to give the edification to the people in the form of clarification. You're not here to give mixed symbols. Because like I said, you got to collaborate everything by way of the science of circumology, understanding all perspectives to get one truth, right? You got to understand, you got to watch the movies. You got to look at gematria. You got to look at all these codexes because they basically coincide with each other. So now I got the video now. Put the 777s up in the chat because we just went through the 7-7 portal, right? Which is basically the personification of transformation as we get through the shift, right? The Great Awakening period. Now I'm gonna show you this other video. Wow, it's not coming up. Well, anyhow, the video was basically demonstrating how the video's not coming up for some reason, but for some reason, it's like I said, it's one of those things where they're telling you that they're not going to be, telling you about the weather in so many words, right? I'm going to try this one more time. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen, because we are living in critical times. And the times that we're living in, like I said, you got to be protected. You got to use psychic self-defense, right? You got to keep your dark side. My movie 45. Okay. See, weather program. All right, let's see if this works, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Let's see what we can do. Put that 777s up in the chat. We're going to keep that 7-7 frequency extremely high. That's the God frequency, right? To where you convert gamma radiation into bioelectricity, which is the green Etherian energy. Now, I'm going to show you this video. The Department of Defense just shut down its weather satellite program. While at the same time, you got all these floods and weather modifications taking place on the planet right now. Like I said, they're trying to blindside you, right? They're trying to sucker punch you, right? They're trying to hit you whenever you're not looking. That's why I say you got to be prepared mentally, physically, and spiritually. I'm going to play the video.
Department of Defense abruptly shutting down its satellite data delivery program, and it's sending meteorologists scrambling.
There are going to be cases this year when certain warnings are delayed because of this. It might mean that evacuations get delayed because of this, and you could lose lives because of this.
This is a huge...
Bro, they telling you in your face that they about to sacrifice you. They telling you in your face, and y'all still got veneration for this wicked-ass government, right? You still upholding these people. You still upholding their principles, following their religion. You believing in what they say through the media, but you castigate people like me who was extrapolating the truth from a higher level and show you the codexes and how everything coincides with prophetic divination. But you're going to listen to what these people say, and they only been on the planet for about 6,000 years? Make that make sense.
Huge deal, especially when you consider the fact that we are just getting into hurricane season. We haven't even reached the peak of hurricane season. The forecasters say they are extremely concerned, and that's because they're only going to receive about half the data they're used to, which makes it problematic when you think about accuracy as well as tracking a hurricane in real time. As you take a look at the video from previous hurricane seasons, starting Monday, June 30th, the Department of Defense is going to stop ingesting, processing, and transmitting real-time microwave data collected aboard 3 weather satellites. Meteorologists say this is going to severely impede and degrade hurricane forecasts for this season and beyond, and as a result, impacting tens of millions of Americans who live in hurricane-prone areas. Hurricane experts say without this satellite imagery, there's going to be an increased risk of sunrise surprise, meaning when the sun goes down and then comes up, a hurricane could rapidly intensify, gain speed, perhaps become more powerful, and make landfall sooner. There's going to be an increased risk of sunrise surprise, meaning when the sun goes down and then comes up, a hurricane could rapidly intensify, gain speed, perhaps.
See, they telling you they about to hit the reset button. That's all they doing. Now we're going to get back to the presentation at hand before I get to the other videos later in the presentation. Like I said, they trying to blindside you, right? So it's not a coincidence that all this, everything that you're seeing taking place right now is going on, right? So you got over 5 inches of rain in Chicago. Hold on for a second. You got over 5 inches of rain in Chicago in the past 90 minutes, right? And that happened around the time of 1 to 2 a.m. last night or this morning. Now, this is very significant. Like I was telling you, everything is extrapolated by way of the movies, right? You got to understand something. That Gemini is going to be in conjunction with Uranus until 2033. Now, by way of the Philadelphia experiment in the Montauk Project, you have a vortex that opens up in 10-year increments, right? I'm going to show you at the top. In 10-year increments, because the Philadelphia experiment, it caused a big rip in the universe in 1943. From 1943, 53, 63, 73, 83, 93, 2003, 13, 2000, 23, 2033. And then you got Pluto in Aquarius all the way up until the time of 2043. That's when it's going to be the personification of finality, because 2043 is also a 9-year. That's when the mothership is going to come back through the vortex and crack the firmament, right? That is basically going to be the last process of when, I guess you could say, the Anunnaki or the Elohim is coming back to extract her children through the mothership to where you escape the firmament. That's what my next transmission is going to be about. It's going to be how to escape the firmament, right? But like I said, when you look at these triangles, it's all represent a tachyon energy. And tachyons have the ability to manipulate ley lines. And those ley lines is connected to the electrical grid that works in harmony with the synthetic atmospheric, radiation that is extracted from the Van Allen belt of what we call the silver key or the silver cord, which is light code lockdown by way of the energy of the firmament. So like I said, the vortex opens up all the way up until Gemini in conjunction with Uranus until 2033, when the vortex opens up, right? And then you got Pluto in Aquarius all the way up until the year of 2043. Not a coincidence. You got all these energies on the planet right now, right? So everything, the whole premises of everything that they're trying to extrapolate is based on the agenda for 2030. We already know about this, the Sustainable Development Goals, right? So this is all connected to the digital ID when you're talking about, such and such right here. And because this is all connected to the smart cities that they want to implement in LA before the year of 2028. This is why it seems like they try to get all the shit out the way in California before California, seeps off into the ocean, right? And goes underwater. You got the Olympics and you got the Super Bowl, right? And you still got LeBron James there. So whatever the case may be, whenever you see LeBron James leave that motherfucking geographical landmass of what we call California and LA, once he starts leaving and he goes to a different landmass or whatever, or to a different team, that's when you know that they finna hit the reset button on your ass, especially in California. Because one thing you got to understand about LeBron James, he is a deep state, democratic, boule NPC. He's an advanced NPC that is being controlling the minds of the great majority of the younger crowd, the younger demographic who wants to play basketball and things of that nature. They just using him as a mechanism to rock people back to sleep. So that's why I was saying. So when you go into the year of 2028, I believe this movie, Demolition Man, you still got to watch this movie. Demolition Man, I think this movie was located in Los Angeles, right? And like I said, they want to have the smart cities implemented before the year of 2028, right? So they got everything they doing in California right now. It's all a part of the process of the Luciferian agenda, because this movie goes hand in hand with such and such right here said, you're going to be excluded from society. And when you watch this movie, it's going to show the people who conform to the system basically harmonizing with, a cybernetic dictatorship that is being controlled by artificial intelligence, right? And then the people who was going against the system and rebelled, they basically was exiled and they was living underground, right? So you got to watch this movie. And then like I said, you got to have many different things going on right now. Since, like I said, you got Gemini in conjunction with Uranus, which is the embodiment of a tower moment, right? So you got a lot of cargo planes from the United States government going to Jerusalem, right? Something's going on. And then you got TikTok is working on a new app designed specifically for the United States users to set a launch on September 5th, right? Not a coincidence. Because like I said, it's one of those things that's going to be 6 days before, the so-called, 9/11 thing that took place or whatever. But like I said, it's almost to the point where they want to have another form of censorship because they know a multitude of things is going to be taking place on planet Earth right now, especially in America, because America is under judgment according to the ancient Alpha symbol. America is under judgment, right? So according to this symbol, America is under judgment. I've been telling y'all about this symbol many different times, right? So now you got that going on. And then you have the travel ban. Like I said, you got to read Henry Kissinger's National Memorandum 200, right? Who was the Secretary of State of in 1975. And like I said, he came up with a program that's based on eugenics. So it's one of those things, it correlates with the Trump administration and what he's basically trying to do, right? And then you got Trump, the White House calls for Smithsonian hiding the giant bones. Like I said, it's one of those things where you cannot make none of this stuff up because the veil is lifted. And you got many different things that's piercing the veil. You had a meteorite hit Blacksville, Georgia during the time we was basically in Atlanta, which is Atlantis, right? So all this stuff on the planet right now is being extrapolated by way of truth. So it's not a coincidence that Donald Trump, the White House, calls out Smithsonian for hiding giant bones, but those giant bones are our ancestors, right? So like I said, it's almost to the point where they have to complete certain things in increments by telling you the truth and having all these, weather modifications. It's like they got to complete certain things to basically balance out their karma, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to hurry up and complete shit before the ancestors return through us, right? Not a coincidence. So then Smithsonian gets a huge Indian head. We already know who this is connected to, right? Washington, Washita, right? That's our people. And then you got 5 people were rushed to the hospital after boat such and such, Lake Lanier. Like I said, all this stuff happening right now because, like I said, we're going through a shifting process. We just went through the 7-7 portal. Now, everything that you're seeing taking place right now is also correlated with the Mountain Dew conspiracy. Now, Drake, who is also a deep state entity, is working in harmony with the music industry to perpetuate a certain ideology that is connected to the Luciferian agenda. So Drake, he just put out a song called Iceman, right? And Iceman is also denoting the fact that Mountain Dew just put out a new flavor called Liberty Chill. And Liberty Chill was also associated with geomagnetic storms when you're talking about weather modification. You got to watch the movie The Day After Tomorrow. You got to watch the movie 2012 because it shows you how the Statue of Liberty is basically broken up into pieces because it was too cold. So a lot of stuff that you're seeing taking place right now is actually the perception of art imitating reality that's going to be taking place in the near future before the year of 2030. They got to complete all these things in order to reap the benefits of a synthetic golden age that is being engineered by the black nobility who are being controlled by the archonic forces to unalive so many people on the planet in the form of sustenance because they feed off the energy of fear and death. Now, like I said, the Mountain Dew conspiracy is all connected to it. So it shows you right here. We already know what happened with the Maui and everything. They came out with the Maui blast, and then you had all that stuff that took place in Hawaii. And then that's how you know it was a deep state psychological operation because the great majority of those homes, they had a blue rooftop, right? They was a part of the Blue House. The Blue House, which is Canaanite culture. They were saving themselves. So then you got, like I said, the Mountain Dew conspiracy, right? Because, like I said, you got to understand the signs and the symbols. They're going to put it in the movies. They're going to show you in the advertisement, in the foods, in the drinks. They're going to show you in the cartoons. They're going to show you in the media. They're going to show you in many different ways. So, like I said, they're doing weather modification now. I just showed you the video on how they can say they can no longer telegraph the weather. So how does cloud seeding technology works? It works by way of the manipulation of ionospheres that is extracted from cloud seeding technology, right? That has ionized particles. That's what you're seeing taking place right now. Now, I believe I got a video to show you guys, 2 videos. Thanks. So let me see. We'll get to another video here. Yes, here we go. Now, like I was telling you, this is the return of Tahuti, Thoth, the messenger. The messengers of the 144,000 that is being used by El Elyon El, who was also Theos or Thanos, right? That is a transliteration of the real Most High when you get into the transliteration of the Book of Revelation, which is El's Holy Injil, right? So like I said, it's one of those things, it's a return of the ancestors by way of a certain energy on the planet that is extrapolated by the heart chakra. And we're going to get into the metaphysics of it as I get through the presentation, but I got to show you this video first.
So, scientists, by the way, did try to intercept radio signals from this mystery object, but I didn't hear anything.
I was going to say we should run, but where are we going?
Nowhere.
We're kind of stuck here.
This isn't just anyone saying this. Astronomers at Harvard University are suggesting a mysterious object that floated through our solar system last year may have been an alien probe. Hear me out. The object, called the Oumuamua, which in Hawaiian means a messenger that reaches out from the distant past.
A space object that has eluded scientists
Notice,
since...
like I said, messenger. What's associated with the Gemini conjunction apparatus? What is basically that basically translating? The messenger is associated with Gemini. Gemini is associated with Thoth. Thoth is actually Tahuti or Hermes or Quetzalcoatl. It's the same person, Enki, the spirit of Melchizedek. So that, like I said, these energies is working through us. So when you're looking at this craft right here, this is basically a cylindrical craft. They trying to show you like it's a rock or whatever. They trying to, make it seem kind of barbaric or whatever, and make it seem like our ancestors is not, highly technological. But like I said, it's one of those things where you got to read, some of Dr. York's books, because he talks about cylindrical crafts and how it, it comes from our galactic history.
passed through Earth in 2017 is now back in the limelight for its disputed origins. Called Oumuamua, the object has been pitched as many things.
A new government report is raising eyebrows across the country, especially among anyone interested in extraterrestrials. Our Alexandra Limon has the story.
Physicist and Harvard professor Avi Loeb says there's a possibility humans aren't the only civilization in the universe.
Whether we live in such a reality or not is not a philosophical question. We just have to look out.
Loeb teamed up with the Pentagon office that investigates unidentified aerial phenomenon, and they released this draft report that indicates it is possible that alien ships have already visited our solar system. Specifically, Loeb thinks the first interstellar object spotted passing through our solar system in 2017 that was given the name Oumuamua could be an extraterrestrial mothership. Loeb says Oumuamua didn't have the characteristics you'd find in meteors or other known objects.
We consider a possibility where...
They're putting this stuff in the news now, right? It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time for you to step away from the religion, right? Because like I said, everything that they basically telling you is really a macrocosm of the microcosm. The mothership is also inside you, right? Which is why I'm going to give a demonstration on how to escape the firmament in the next transmission, right? So I don't want to spoil it and everything for you, but we finna get to the rest of the presentation. I'm going to keep playing the video.
An object as big as Oumuamua, which was football field size, is a mothership.
He says the mothership could have released smaller ships or probes to study our solar system after spending a long time to get here.
With chemical rockets, it takes less than 1 billion years to traverse the entire Milky Way galaxy.
Loeb says if Oumuamua was a ship, there likely wasn't life on it.
Here is NASA's manager for its Center for Near-Earth Object Studies. Take a listen.
This object is simply a piece of another solar system that was expelled, and it has been traveling through interstellar space for hundreds of millions of years, billions of years, we don't know.
NASA says this object will only be here for a limited time. Again, it's traveling at 40,000 miles per hour. In case you were wondering, the name Oumuamua is Hawaiian. It means a messenger from afar arriving first.
We detect some fast-moving thing from internet. Something was
says the object was discovered last year.
I don't want to hear. I don't like Neil deGrasse. I don't like him. He's a deep state operative too, who gives you misinformation about, space and cosmology.
He says it's not a comet or an asteroid, and why there's no scientific proof, it could be something from another life form.
Could be a space debris from an advanced technological equipment that is either defunct or operational. We don't know. Maybe it's a reconnaissance mission coming to the inner part of the solar system to look around.
Like an alien ship?
Our suggestion is that it may be a light sail. A light sail is a sail pushed by light. Just like a sailboat is being pushed by the wind.
Begs the question, do you think we are alone?
No, I don't think we're alone. I think there's a good chance that there's something out there for sure.
I think we're alone.
You just never know.
Professor Loeb says the object is now moving out of our solar system and will take thousands of years to do so. However, he also says it's too late for scientists to find that object again in space with the technology we have today.
With conventional rockets, we cannot catch up with it. However, if we develop better technology for propulsion, we could potentially in the future chase it down and reach it. That we are not the most intelligent civilization that ever existed.
Renowned Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb teaming up with the new head of the Pentagon's UFO office, dubbed the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Together they say that interstellar objects detected in space could be signs of extraterrestrial life, and that current sky mapping technology like the James Webb Space Telescope could miss such objects.
It could have been a mother ship that released some probes in the habitable region around the sun. If we have a visitor to our backyard, we should observe it at first.
Professor Loeb now leading the charge to build better arrays of sensors to capture anomalies, but saying for now everything is hypothetical, and his paper is really meant to remind UFO hunters not to forget the laws of physics.
As much as the reports from military personnel are intriguing and motivate my work right now, I want my instruments to tell me what is really happening.
Meanwhile, more videos surfacing showing odd objects have been leaked to documentary UFO filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, who recently released pictures of an orb shape over Mosul, and these images showing a cylinder flying over a rock. The Pentagon not commenting on the recent videos, but confirming prior videos released by Corbell had been filmed by service members. As for what they are, definitive explanations remain out of reach.
We observed it for about 6 weeks, very strenuously last year. So we collected a whole lot of data. And as has been pointed out by many astronomers, it generated what we call a non-gravitational velocity signature. That is to say, as it swung through the inner solar system and on its way out, it moved in a way that wasn't just explainable by its gravitational signature from the sun. What does that actually mean to everybody? It means that the object could have been outgassing like a comet. So, if you've got a balloon and you open up the end of it, it sails off very, very quickly because of this pressure from the gas. Most comets do that type of thing as they move through the inner solar system. The snag was we couldn't see any outgassing from this object, and that has led to all sorts of speculation, like it was a big solar sail from an artificial intelligence.
Now, back to the presentation at hand. So, showed you that video, and then I'm going to show you another one here in a second, because it all works in conjunction. So, like I said, Gemini is also associated with Thoth. Thoth is also associated with Mercury, and Mercury is also a gas giant, and a gas giant is extrapolated by way of an ethereal energy, which is the dodecahedron, which is the quintessence of the universe, right? So as you can see on this diagram right here, the heart chakra is basically the embodiment of Mercury, who is Thoth, right? Who is also associated with the spirit of Melchizedek. That's why I said you got to unlike the thymus gland. The thymus gland is connected to the 144 echinic keys. Those echinic keys in itself happens by way of the energy of judgment, because the judgment itself is associated with the ancient Alpha symbol that, like I was talking about, I'm going to show you at the top, because it creates the letter A, right? It creates the letter A. The ancient Alpha symbol is associated with Mercury, it's associated with Thoth, and it's associated with Gemini, because the truth in itself is going to create a tower moment. That's what's going to be taking place. A tower moment by way of truth, because we're going to be exposing everything, right? So now you got to watch this movie, Fantastic Four. And in the movie, it shows you a scene of a woman, and she's basically the messenger of Galactus. And Silver Surfer is basically the embodiment of the element Hg, which is the silver liquid that is also associated with Mercury. Mercury is the only metallic element that is liquid at room temperature, giving dynamic flowing energy of nature that matches the Silver Surfer's cosmic fluid movement through space, right? And then it tells you right here, and Mercury rules in communication, intellect, and travel. So that means that the Silver Surfer was basically the embodiment of a woman. They used to have it as a man, but now she's a woman, because they know that a woman can only create the restoration of the matriarch by way of the energy of truth. So now you go to Silver Surfer's role involves in deep philosophical introspection, cosmic awareness, communication of cosmic truths, aligning with Mercury energy. The surfboard, it resembles a winged vehicle in a nod of Hermes' winged sandals, which is a representation of the Caudicus, which is a raising of the Kundalini energy, when the endocrine system is basically in alignment. So like I said, the Silver Surfer is also the embodiment of Gemini, Thoth, Mercury. It's all the same thing, because like I said, the movie came out on, it comes out on July the 25th, but there's a scene in the movie, she comes back to humanity in Times Square, the same place where they got this, the same place where they got the Liberty Chill, right? Liberty Chill works in tandem. This Mountain Dew flavor works in tandem with Drake's song, which also is correlated to the scene in the movie. There's a scene in the movie where she talks about, she says verbatim, your planet is under judgment and you don't have much time left. And the judgment is also associated with the ancient Alpha symbol that I just showed you. When you're talking about the three solar eclipses, and the solar eclipses was basically the embodiment of the black sun, because the black sun is associated with Ophiuchus, and Ophiuchus is really Tahuti, who was Thoth, who was Hermes. It's the same person, right? You got to understand the codexes. You got to start. That's why I was saying the Sufi order of the Sons of Green Light. Green light is a reality disruptor. Green light has the ability to basically cause interface transitions within the matrix by way of speaking truth, because it basically embodies all philosophies by way of the science of circumology. That's why when you look at it, you can see the amalgamation of all the spiritual systems and monotheistic religions, right? The true origins of them. Because there's truth in everything, but you got to have a filter, you have to have a filtering system that's connected to your neurological functions, right? You have to have an antivirus scanner in your neurological faculties and basically extract everything that's basically, that's basically the embodiment of misinformation. So the Silver Sulfur is associated with Mercury, who was Tahuti, who was Thoth. And basically, he was the messenger of Galactus. Galactus was in alignment with Kronos in the Marvel comics. Some people say he's associated with Abraxas. He's associated with Yaldabaoth, and he's associated. I forgot what the other archonic force is, but he's supposed to be associated with both of those energies at the same time. So this is why, like I said, when you speak truth, it creates time dilation. Time dilation meaning that you're going to have a manipulation of the grid system, right? Because one thing you got to understand about bioelectricity, it has a form of oscillation that can manipulate westernized technology. So when you start to speak truth to power by way of the heart chakra, that's when the earth is going to spin a lot more faster, right? And when it spins a lot more faster, that means that the epicenter of planet Earth is activating an amalgamation of dynamos, and then those dynamos create an influx of iron to the planet that gives it more energy. And once it creates more energy, that's what creates time dilation, right? To where it causes a manipulation in the space-time continuum. So it says right here, Earth predicted to spin faster on July 9th, July 22nd, August 5th, slightly shortening the days, right? Because like I said, ether is one of those things that basically embodies all forces of nature. Because ether has the ability to collaborate with the four basic elements of earth, air, water, and fire. Because it's the dodecahedron. Because the four basic elements are basically the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Or when you're talking about the four gas giants. The four gas giants, the four basic elements, and the four horsemen of the apocalypse, from an esoteric and metaphysical level, they're basically the same thing. But ether, when it collaborates with ether, that's what's going to cause creation or destruction, which is alpha and omega, which is the number 19 that is connected to the ancient alpha symbol, right? So all of this is basically working in harmony with gematria, numerology, metaphysics, and quantum physics. It all correlates. You got to watch the movies. You cannot be one-dimensional with the knowledge and then expect to get the damn truth, right? You can't just be so fixated on the Holy Quran. You can't be so fixated on the Circle 7. You can't be so fixated on the goddamn Bible. Like, it's one of those things where you got to study all perspectives to get one truth. That's what the green light is all about. Understanding everything all around your environment to where you become a master. And once you master the realm and you master yourself, that's when you become the Maruvian symbol of the Merkaba, to where you're able to escape the matrix, because your heart and your mind has a tachyon energy that creates an influx of gravitational velocity systems to where you're able to escape the firmament. So this is all a part of the great separation. I told you the next year is you're gonna see a dimensional split. And the dimensional split is basically the embodiment of the year of 2026, which is the year of the goat and the sheep. I think it's the year 2026 or the year 2027. But there's going to be a great separation. It's starting to take place right now in full spectrum, right? So that's why I said Thoth is in the middle, because he's basically harmonizing with the energy of the Thunderbird and the energy of the Phoenix, which creates a dimensional split. And that dimensional split in itself creates the pyramid, which is the fire in the middle, which is your inner child, which is the soul, the frequency of the soul, which is the heart chakra, which is Mercury, which is Tahuti. This is why you see Aries and Libra basically in between Thoth, because that creates balance, which is Mayat, to where you go back into the spiritual sun when you escape the firmament. That's why I said, I'm gonna use this this diagram again, but like I said, you gotta become nature in order to leave. So they telling you what time it is in all the movies. You gotta watch this movie right here, Jurassic World Rebirth. Why? Because in the movie, the plot of the movie, they say about 30 to 40% of people on the planet was dealing with a lot of heart disease. So they had to go to Hollow Earth to extract DNA from a dinosaur called Cortosaurus. Cortosaurus is actually Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is Thoth, that is associated with the heart. So that's why I said they already know what time it is on the planet. You just don't know, right? Because you're not watching the movies, you're not reading the books, you just going along to get along, and you want to be a liberal with some purple hair. That's what your life is about, right? So now I'm gonna show you this video because it's basically in conjunction with everything that I'm basically demonstrating. Now, this guy, this Chinese guy, I think he's Chinese, Asian, I'm not sure where he's from, but they said that he has, you know, the highest IQ on the planet right now, and he believes in Jesus, right? You have the highest IQ and you believe in Jesus, and you believe in the Bible, right? You believe in a colonized, European mythologized type of, construct. You believe in that, right? You believe in a philosophy that was built on imperialism, but you have the highest IQ. But like I said, they put people like this in front of us on purpose because they're here to bring a certain message, right? And they want the message to basically coincide with monotheistic religious systems. So where they can basically say it's a form of prophecy that's connected to their religious paradigms. So I'm gonna play this video, and this guy, he's gonna be talking about how he's a messenger. Because like I said, he's not the true messenger. The real messengers are the convergence of the 144,000 that is extracted by the indigenous people. And being indigenous not only subjected to bloodlines and things of that nature or whatever, because you also got other bloodlines such as everybody on the planet is not a Canaanite. Everybody on the planet is not a Canaanite, right? That is a bloodline. That is what you call the 13 bloodlines of your so-called Illuminati. That's basically the premises of the Canaanite faction. So the convergence of those that's not connected to the Canaanite bloodline is actually going to be the messengers to extrapolate a certain truth that's not connected to the religious systems that's being perpetuated by westernized society. So it tells you right here, breaking, the world's smartest man with a 276 confirmed IQ uploaded a video claiming that Jesus will return. Because one thing you got to understand about the word Jesus comes from the word Jesus. Jesus comes from the word gas. This is when you break down the etymology in ancient Proto-Semitic language, because when you're saying Jesus, you're really saying Jesus, and that Jesus is a gas, and that gas is associated with Mercury, which is Tahuti, who is Thoth, or thought, which is Thoth, right? Because your thoughts leave an energetic imprint on the universe, right? So that's why I said Jesus is really not the true Lord of the Bible. It's the spirit of Melchizedek, who was Thoth, Tahuti. It's the same person, right? I'm gonna play the video. So the messenger, right, is us, the spirit of Melchizedek that's working through the energy of Thoth, right, to leave thoughts to basically disrupt this synthetic reality.
I am the world's highest IQ record holder, Young-Hoon Kim. I say this not just with human logic, but with divine revelation. Jesus Christ will return in our generation. This is...
Look, if you watch that Silver Surfer, he's basically in our real life form as what we call the Silver Surfer. Like I said, they put certain people out in front of us to give us the truth, but they basically masking it in the form of religion, right? Now, Jesus is returning, but he's not returning of what you call it. The real Christ within us is basically returning, right? And that Christ is going to speak a certain truth that is associated with Silver Surfer that's going to cause judgment, the return of Thoth, right? That's what this is basically talking about. So him, like I said, he is just a person they just put out in front, and they say, hey, go say this on the news. You got the highest IQ and all this stuff, and tell them that Jesus is basically returning. Tell them. That's all they doing. But like I said, this is a codex. They have to let you know what time it is on the planet. He said that he's gonna return on in our generation. So that means that the Kundalini energy is gonna resurrect within your genetic format, right? I'm gonna play the video.
This is a truth revealed to me by God the Father and the Holy Spirit. I have received grace not only through faith, but through the gift of the world's highest IQ score and record. My intelligence is not for me. It is a sign from God, a gift to testify to His truth. And it is the evidence that I have been commissioned to see what others ignore and speak what others fear. Modern science shows that time is not fixed. Einstein proved that time moves differently depending on speed and gravity. So when Jesus said, "This generation will not pass away until all these things happen," he was speaking from eternity, not human clocks. And quantum physics teaches that what we believe and observe can shape what becomes real. When many begin to see the truth, the prophecy becomes the present, and that is exactly what is happening now. Look around. We create artificial intelligence that think, but forget how to think ourselves. We edit our DNA, but deny who we truly are. And we kill the unborn and call it freedom. And we confuse truth with opinion, and we worship progress instead of God. This is not evolution or progress. It is absolutely collapse. And it matches exactly what Jesus wants: lies, lawlessness, betrayal, and people don't care about each other anymore. Jesus said, when you see these things begin to happen, know that I am here, right at the door.
See, everything, like I said, it's imperative to understand what time it is that we living on the planet right now. So the return in itself is not the return of Jesus. Hold on, let me get my screen back. All right. So now, like I said, I'm gonna give a brief synopsis about everything that's going on, because there's a big, Gemini energy, because Gemini is also associated with the return of Thoth, which is the messenger that is associated with Mercury, right? So you got Gemini, Uranus conjunction until the year of 2033, and then you got Pluto in Aquarius until 2043, and that correlates with the 10-year increments of when the vortex opens up, and when you're talking about the mothership coming back to extract her children. Now, this is also correlated with Saturn being in retrograde, which is basically the embodiment of karmic retribution right before the winter, right? So this is going to be the embodiment of a tower moment, and the tower moment is going to be facilitated by a Gemini energy. And that Gemini energy is the personification of judgment, which is justice, that basically resets the scales of justice on the planet. So it all works in harmony with the flood maps, right? These maps all correlate together. So they've been telling you about cloud seeding technology, because it's all going to be extrapolated for the agenda for 2030. And they have to complete many different, missions to have this, totalitarian dystopia. It's all connected to the movie Demolition Man. You got all these things taking place. It's all connected to the Mountain Dew conspiracy. And it's also associated with Mercury. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, get this video out there. Put 777 back up in the chat, because that's the God frequency. So, like I said, we living in a time right now, you have to be very meticulous of your surroundings, because they're basically trying to blindside us. They're not going to be telling you about the weather, because it's all based on weather modification that is being controlled by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, that is being controlled by the Majestic 12 or M12 that's on the dark side of the moon, because the moon is what controls the great majority of the weather modification in the three-dimensional world. So what you're seeing is the collapse of the Metatronic overlay, the collapse of the three-dimensional world that is connected to the lower fourth dimension. The archonic forces are basically losing its power. So it's not a coincidence that the planet is starting to speed up in vibration by way of orbitation, literally, right? Which creates time dilation. Time dilation, when you lose track of time, that's going to manipulate the electrical energies of oscillating signals that's connected to westernized technology. All these things is going to be manipulated because the epicenter of the planet is starting to speed up, right? You got the black sun, which is basically the embodiment of Ophiuchus, which is basically the personification of the true Christ within, because Ophiuchus shows you the serpent that is acclimated to the Kundalini serpent that sits at the 33rd vertebrae, and it goes into the crown chakra, and it activates the corpus callosum to where it creates the dove wings, to where you're able to ascend mentally and physically and spiritually at the same time. So like I said, it's one of those things where these Luciferian agendas is being used as a negative catalyst to keep you in a low vibrational state. They want to keep you stuck here, right? You got to rise above that shit. You got to rise above the technology. You got to rise above the political apparatus. You got to rise above of all these, weather modifications that's being facilitated by cloud seeding technology. You got to raise up your mental frequency. You got to get away from people who are vibrating at a low frequency. If you're a high vibrational person, why the hell are you hanging out with people who's going to bring your energy down? You need that energy as cosmic fuel to get through the Great Awakening period, right? Because your karma is going to become their karma. Because I told you, Saturn goes back into retrograde next week. And that's going to be the embodiment of karmic retribution, because it's not only subjected to, the whole westernized apparatus when you're talking about judgment and karma. You got motherfuckers out here dealing with karma themselves because they are being controlled and operated by a wicked system. So that's why I said keep your vibration high by deviating from certain demographics of people. That's going to keep you stuck here, because your karma is going to become their karma. Your demons is going to become their demons. And the only way to reach the apex of your higher self is the energy of tranquility that puts you in alignment with solitude, which also puts you in a process of your tunnel vision on your spiritual journey. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, get this video out there. End of transmission.
Be Frankie. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Man, my auntie passed last night. This is a sad life, I'm trying to get my cash right. Past bright, yeah, I'm shining like a flashlight. Trying to take off quick, might catch a fast flight. I'm mad tight, shitting on her with my ass wipes. Staying away from old friends, they all seem fake to me. Hating me, cause I'm getting dough just like the bakery. I'm tired of a mediocre life. I got hopes of Mike's fiends smoking pipes. This the second song that I wrote tonight. Haters smoking spite, how we got such a focused sight. I done flirted with death. 98 was the birth of the best. Grass cut from the surface I met. Rhymes I steadily spew, my hope will never be through. When it's all said and done, they'll remember me too. Life's a trip, regardless if the lace is tied. I'm spitting dope on my listeners, I make them high. The media got your brains baked and fried. Great supply, take your eyes and replace them with the ancient lies. I'm too cold, I spit hot. New flows for hip-hop, a few shows and get guap. New clothes, no wristwatch. I don't really care about your materialistic. Spazzing in the booth from iller than venereal sickness. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Gotta count my blessings even though I'm daily stressing. See, my brain is a weapon, I can use it for protection. Used to take dabs off the rip like collections. Flows very often relative to beat selections. Block your number, cut you off, I hope you get the message. I hold the mic close to me like it's supposed to be. Haters act like they don't notice me, but I'm too focused, see. I devote to dreams and promote my schemes. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.